everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday, episode 4 already. Oh my gosh. I'm very, very excited for you to re-meet, see again, perhaps, these two guests that we have tonight. But first, please, we want to hear your questions, comments, praise for these two wonderful people. You have to give us permission to do that. You don't actually have to give us permission. You have to give StreamYard permission. That's the platform that we use. So in order for them to use your name, you have to go to this link down here, streamyard.com/Facebook. And then when you comment your questions and they pop up here on the screen, we'll see your photo and your name. So let's get right into it, shall we? Let's bring these guests out here. First, we have Farmers Alley Theater's production stage manager and member of Actors Equity Association, which, by the way, is not just for actors. We have Mr. Roger Burleigh.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Roger.
Hi.
Our second guest tonight is former Farmers Alley stage manager and current freelance stage manager in New York City, Mr. Bob Brownell.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know if
Welcome,
current
guys.
is correct, but yeah.
What's up?
So I don't know if currently a freelance
Okay.
manager is
Well,
correct,
none of us are current right now.
None of us are current.
but yeah, glad to be here.
So now, Bob, it's been a minute since you've done a Farmers Alley show. When was your last show? It's been 3 years now?
Summer of 2017. Yeah. It should have been you, right, Roger? Yes, maybe.
Should have been you, or was it the one after that?
Was there one after that?
Yes, that would have been the first show that season or that summer. Because Kathy directed it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Peter the Starcatcher?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it should have been you as the last show because I couldn't work on Peter and the Starcatcher because at that point I had earned my equity card and Farmers Alley could no longer afford me. So here we are.
Yeah, because I was the ASM for Peter and the Starcatcher.
Right.
All right. So how did you get involved with Farmers Alley, Bob?
Well, it's your fault. Carrie.
Yes, it is.
I asked that question just to hear that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so Carrie and I, thank you very much. Carrie and I did a production of Hairspray at the Comstock Theater way back in the day. I mean, that must have been 2011, 2010.
Yes. When was that? When was the cabaret?
I think the cabaret was after.
It was the February. Yeah, it was 2011, 2012. 10 years ago, almost.
Yeah.
Coming up.
And you were, I think you were you an ASM on Hairspray?
No, I subbed on Spot a couple times.
Oh, see.
I wasn't actually on like the full crew. I was a sub.
Wow. I've told this story incorrectly many times. But anyway, so I was in the cast. I was in the chorus of the show, and I had been a performer, actor in a couple of Kalamazoo. Actually, I guess that was my only Kalamazoo area show, but I did shows in Marshall, where I grew up, Marshall, Michigan. And Carrie and I became friends, and after that show, some point, she asked me to run a spotlight for the light in the piazza at Farmers Alley Theater. And I hadn't heard of any of this. And I just said, sure. And I showed up and I met the whole crew, Jeremy and Rob and Adam and Deneen and Roger, and started running a spotlight for the light in the piazza. I think I didn't know at the time that I would be there for 5 weeks because I was used to doing a weekend or 2 weekends of theater. So that was special and different. And yeah, and then from there, that was my entrance. From there, I got to know.
Not only did you run a spotlight, but you were also the hat caterpillar.
That's right.
That's true.
One of the most important positions in that show.
Truly.
If her hat would have never blown away, there would have been no reason to continue the story.
And yep. It's true. It's true. Yeah, and so then I got to know Roger and everybody really well, and then for some reason Roger decided that I was worthy enough to be the ASM for the next show in the fall season, which amazes me to this day. So
he knows talent when he sees it.
And what show was that?
Spitfire Grill.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's so far back that I don't remember the order of them anymore.
So, Roger, how did you get involved with Farmer's Alley?
I got involved with Farmer's Alley because it's sort of a kind of alluded story, because I was doing ragtime at the Civic when the whole concept of Farmer's Alley theater was being hatched. So I was aware of it. But at that point in time, I was very, very involved with the Kalamazoo Civic players. And by the time they announced that they were really going to do Farmer's Alley Theater, I had already committed to a year's commitment at the Civic. And because I called most of their big musicals at the time, that's opening and closing. So, pretty much the year. And I'm not the type of person that says, yes, I'll do something and then not do it. And then I was directing at Kindleberger Summer Theater, doing State Fair. And yep, which is where I met Carrie Phillips. And at intermission, my phone rang, and being the excellent actor I am, I had my cell phone in my pocket. And it was Kathy Muley calling me, asking me to be in She Loves Me, which was going to open the second season. So I said, sure, I'd be happy to audition for it. And so I did, and got the part, and did the show, and had a great time. And then Kathy contacted me and said, I need you to call Patsy Cline, which was the opener of the third season. And from that point on, I stage managed every musical that Farmer's Alley has done. And then, well, Bob, did you do Superior Donuts?
Nope.
Jan did Superior Donuts, I think.
Before my time.
You did Whipping Man.
Correct.
And Whipping Man was the last show that I have not called at Farmer's Alley Theater. I've called every show at the theater since Whipping Man.
That is a lot of shows.
It is a lot of shows.
Do you have a favorite or a couple favorites?
It depends. My favorite show that I've ever called at Farmer's Alley was our production of Next to Normal.
So good.
It brings little goosebumps to my arms just saying the title. And I'm so bummed we had to cancel, what's the name of that? Bright Star, because Michelle Duffy was coming back to play the lead in Bright Star, which I was so excited to work with her again. So that was one of my favorites. The Producers was one of my favorites, just because we pulled it off. And we pulled it off in 4 weeks, which I'm not quite sure how that all happened. I still don't know how it all happened.
You probably blacked out, I'm sure.
And then play-wise, I would have to say, I think my favorite play would either be The 39 Steps or Peter and the Starcatcher. Would probably be my two favorite plays.
Good choices. Bob, do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah, yes. I have many favorites. There are so many good experiences at Farmer's Alley. And but I think all in all, the Spitfire Grill honestly was my favorite production that I worked with. It was my first production. I received so much trust from everyone around me for being the first time So Tony had a good call out that ASM stands for Assistant Stage Manager. So that was for almost every production that I worked on at Farmers Alley, I was the assistant stage manager. And so first time ever being an assistant stage manager for Spitfire Grill. And I learned so much under Roger and Kathy Muley and the late John Muley and the whole cast and crew and everyone. And it was just a beautiful production. And I also had great friends that I made from that, lifelong friends, Aaron O'Shell and Gary McRoberts, both actors in that show. We had a great time outside of the theater, inside of the theater, and had sets. And so, yeah, overall, Spitfire Grill, most memorable for me. For sure.
All right. Well, it looks like Julie has a question. She said, "What do you wish actors would do to make the stage managers' lives and jobs easier?" Any input on Bob? You're nodding. What do you think?
I don't know. I think it's we all make our each other's jobs easier when we're doing the best job at our job, right? And so for actors specifically, if they have their lines and blocking memorized, then we can focus on the technical elements of the show and not have to focus as much on making sure they're doing the tracks and saying the lines that they should be. But the same goes for designers. Designers could make stage managers' lives easier if they were making sure that they met all their deadlines and they were very communicative of all of the issues and needs that they have. Producers could make stage managers' lives easier by being fully transparent with issues that arise and upfront about marketing requests and things like that request or that involve the actors and all that. So yeah, it's we all can make our lives and jobs easier by doing the best job in our own role.
I mean, you're definitely not wrong.
Good. For me, it's so basic. When actors arrive at the building, sign into the call board.
Sure.
When I give a call, repeat the call and say thank you. Now, I know we're a very small theater, but when I'm responsible to getting the show started on time, I need to make sure that everybody is there, that calls about people are ready to go, because I don't call the shows from backstage. I have to be in the front of the house before the show starts. So I can't do a last minute double check.
Yep.
And when we were at the little theater, again, bringing up the producers, I would call 15 minutes. And by the time I called 15 minutes, I had to immediately start at 5 because it took that long to go through every room of that theater because that's where the cast was. And it wasn't their fault. That's where they were supposed to be.
That's just how the building worked, yeah.
But it was like, so those are, it's just basic.
Yep. Bring your own pencil.
Stage management etiquette is so important because I'm going to treat my actors with as much respect as I possibly can. I'm going to do everything I can to make them shine on that stage. And my job is to make sure the audience doesn't know that I'm doing that. For me to succeed, it needs to be flawless. It can't be glitchy. So, yeah, we're basically invisible. But anyway.
So I know we sort of just got a little taste of it, but for people who maybe don't know what stage managers do, because it's a long list, it is a lot of responsibilities. What do stage managers do?
Can I?
Roger.
How long do you have?
Yeah, right.
No. Actually, it's very short. The definition of stage manager's job is to maintain the artistic integrity of the production, which means it is our job that once the show is given to us, just prior to opening night, following the last preview, or in our case, invited dress, it is our job to make sure that show doesn't change.
Stick
now,
with the director's vision.
Yes. Now, to do that, we are in charge of making sure the actors are in place. They're in the right costumes. The costume changes are being made. The set changes are being made. All the lighting is happening at the right time. All the sound cues are happening at the right time. Any special effects are happening at the right time. Any projections are happening at the right time. So when you do a show like another one of my favorites, which I forgot about until just now, Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, where I had 440 light cues, over 400 sound cues, and 600 projection cues in a show that was 2 hours long. That's being really, really busy.
And running them all yourself.
I didn't run projections for that show.
Okay.
But I had to call them, which was almost harder.
Yeah.
Because I had to work that in with everything else.
With your own synchronized button pushing.
Yes. Yes. So, but Bob, anything to add to that?
Yeah. I think I boiled down a little phrase to kind of reflect more of how do we get to the point as stage managers to be able to take over the show, like you're saying, and protect the artistic vision of the director and the designers and all. And my little phrase is listening and facilitating with organized diligence.
Ooh.
Because
Hold on, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, write that down. Listening.
I'm actually not kidding. I'm definitely writing it down.
Yeah, listening and facilitating with organized diligence. And basically what that means to me is the stage manager is involved from the very, very pre-production before anybody sometimes even knows about the show, and going through closing night, right? And every step of the way, we have to take in all of the information from every single department and every single person involved into a production. We have to take all of that information and we have to engage with it and understand it and be able to regurgitate it. And so that's the facilitating part. So taking all of that information that you've used from that you've listened to and facilitating the rehearsal process and the performances with all that you have listened to by being organized and diligent, by working every moment to make sure that anything you can't remember by just looking at and seeing and feeling, that you have that written down. Any movements that an actor, a set piece, a prop makes, you write that down. Because if you have it written down and the director comes back and says, that's not the way we did it, and you have to come back and say, well, that is the way we did it. We can do it a different way. But that's the way we did it.
I feel like we need to insert a little graphic here that just says paperwork and has some like fireworks. But actually, speaking of paperwork, Ron had a question there that said, how has digitalization changed the job? Roger, if you can.
In some ways, it's made the job easier. In other ways, it's made the job a lot harder. For example, when A Chorus Line opened on Broadway in 1975, it had 95 light cues in it. When I did Chorus Line in the early 2000s at the Civic, I had over 300 light cues in the show. Now, that's because a light cue is now executed by pushing a button, where in the olden days, it was like you were working in Frankenstein's laboratory and you had the big things that you had to preset. You you had to monkey bar around to pull the things down at the right times and all of that, which made it a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
you could
honestly, I'm jealous that I never got to experience.
Me too.
it was interesting. But you could not do the creative aspects that we can do now because of the digital age. Projections are such a huge thing in theater now. Broadway, scenic is projections. The Mandalorian, Disney Plus, is all projected scenery.
Yeah.
With the back wall moves around, which is a really cool documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's very interesting. The basic job, it hasn't changed because you still need to write it all down.
Or type it all up.
Yeah. You have to have, it's a job of lists and prioritizing and
spreadsheets.
Yeah. So
we love a spreadsheet.
That's why when I get to hire crews, I try to hire the most competent people I possibly can to make my job easier. So,
yeah. So I want to get to some questions here that were asked both on Facebook and on Instagram. So Bob, from our good friend Lanny Potts, audience, if you missed it, Lanny was a guest on episode 1 of Tech Tuesday. So he and Jason Frank are awesome, and you should go back and watch that episode. Lanny wants to know, what was it that made you decide to make your work as a professional? And what advice do you have for someone younger contemplating a similar career path?
Yeah. I've always been an opportunist, That's what got me into Farmer's Alley, with saying yes to running a spotlight at a theater I've never heard of, and also not something that I'd ever done. That's what led me to saying yes to Roger asking me to be the ASM, the assistant stage manager, which he did say ASM at the time, and I said, I'm not really sure what that is. But yeah. And so when I did It Should Have Been You, and I back when I did Cabaret was my first time being in the equity membership candidate program.
Yep.
So I had done many shows before being in the program, but that was my first show being in that program, and then gaining enough weeks, so working enough weeks of contracts to be able to join the union. So once I joined the union, I saw it as an opportunity to pursue being in the union, which unfortunately I wasn't able to do at Farmer's Alley because they already have a brilliant union stage manager in Roger Burleigh. But so I decided, New York City, that's where it all happens.
If you can make it there, Bob, you can make it anywhere.
So I went out, and I was also, when I was in Kalamazoo, I was working at Bell's Brewery as a server and saving up all my tips and making sure that I could go to New York City with a bit of a cushion, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get a job right away. And so that's, that kind of transitioning into advice for younger stage managers who want to pursue it professionally, especially in a very expensive city like New York City, is make sure that you can support yourself going into it, because you might get really lucky right away, but you're gonna have to go on a lot of coffee dates, get a lot of drinks with people, and network. So eventually, someone blindly trusts you to be involved in their production with your tiny resume. So yeah, I mean, I got very lucky, and my first month, that's all I did. I got comfortable with living in the city, and I had these connections that I made at Farmers Alley Theater with mostly actors in New York City, but also someone like Bree Clements, who a long time ago in Farmers Alley Theater's history was a stage manager for Farmers Alley. And she connected me with Large Network. And once I got the first show, so many other shows followed after that because I kept on building and building my network. So in the beginning, you have to say yes to things that you might not want to do because maybe you're not that interested in the show, or the pay is actually nothing. But you have to keep on. You have to make sure that you have that financial cushion, and you can support yourself, but also have the room and be willing to say yes.
And make sure that I'm gonna just add on there, if you are coming from a place where you have the opportunity to learn how to do more than one thing, do it.
Yeah.
Or at least make sure your circle is full of enough people who know how to do other things. So that way, when you're like Bob and you're sitting behind an ion and you're trying to figure out how to record something into a Submaster, you can call Carrie and you can say, hey, Carrie.
I literally did that.
What am I doing? Yeah. So just make sure that, that you know people or you know things or both.
Yeah, for sure. And the last thing I want to say, just because Lanny did bring this up, is that I touched on this before, but with my time in Farmers Alley Theater, because everyone is so trusting and willing to give up their knowledge and wisdom to someone who's willing to ask, is ask. And I learned not only so much from Roger, but I learned so much from every designer that I worked with. I learned so much from Lanny Potts. It's ridiculous. And I learned so much from Tom Schuster, the technical director of many shows, and so many other designers. So yes, ask questions and listen, for sure.
Absolutely. Roger, Lanny had a really lovely compliment for you. So I'm going to give you this compliment and ask you the questions that go along with it. He says, Roger, I've been a stage manager at the Kennedy Center and have designed lights all over the world. Your cue execution is flawless. I feel like my lights are breathing the life of the play when you call a show. So why do you think you're so good at it? And there's a second part to this, but we'll start. Why do you think you're so good at it?
Well, first of all, I've been doing it for a really long time.
Always helps.
I have a very extensive music background in both vocal music and band orchestral music. So I can read music, I can read a score. So once I see a lighting designer's design and say, oh, okay, that's what that does, it needs to be called here to make it happen by this point in time. And if you look at any, especially my musical scripts, it will say over in the side, light cue 197. And then you'll see a hash. And then you'll see that hash has been erased and it's been moved a syllable forward. And that one's been erased and it's been moved a word and a half forward. And until I'm happy with the execution, because the lights are supposed to help tell the story. And I don't think as an audience, we want to notice the lights. We want the lights to just happen and, it's just... And
enhance what's happening on stage.
It's magic. Yeah. It's all part of the magic. So that, I think, really helps in calling a show. Also, Lanny and I work really, really well together. And I could not ask for a nicer, more kind person to work with the exception of Jason Frink, because I don't want to leave him out either. He's the same way. Excuse me. We have both worked together for a really long time. And so I can turn to them and say, I think it needs to happen here. Oh, I'll fix that for you. Cool, thanks. And so they trust me, I trust them, and I think the end product shows that. because if we don't trust each other, it's not going to be pretty. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the second half of what he asked, he says, I've often watched you go through multiple pages of a script with cues and never look down. Your eyes are always on the stage. Do you memorize every cue? And if so, how?
I don't memorize every cue, but I memorize chunks of cues because some of them are, for example, again, and I know it's numbers and things like that. When we did Cabaret, the Money Makes the World Go Round song had 48 cues in the one number. So basically, every single time Adam Carter, as the MC, took a step, there was a new cue because he was walking into the pool of light. So the first step was the transition, and the second step, he was in the pool of light. And then the third step was the transition, and the fourth step is the pool of light. And you can have your script marked up as much as you want. But if that actor changes the pace one iota, it's not going to work. So you have to pay attention to what's going on the stage. And, you know, that I know that's one example of knowing a section and how it's going to happen. So,
yeah,
I guess that's the best answer that I can think of.
It's a lot. I mean, there are some sequences that, like, you know, I think I called, I think it was Drowsy Chaperone, and the end of Act 1 has the big number, and there's 9 actors, like the entire cast is on stage, the entire company, and there's like 9 actors who have solos, but it's like one line, like, and they're all over the place. And so you literally bless my spot ops because you have to give the cue, like all of the cues in advance.
Yep.
And then you literally just watch the stage and say, go, 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 go. And they just have to know, like, it's
when we did Cats at the Civic, the Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats number, opening number. Basically, every measure was a new cue. And I think I had 3 spots for that show. So they knew they were in a cycle. It was always 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But those cues came to the point of, are you blind when you're born? Can you see in the dark? Do you look at a king? Do you sit on your throne? And that's for that entire song until you get to the Jellicle Songs for whatever, all that stuff. And the first run through, oh my goodness, it was probably the funniest thing in the entire world because my spots have seen the show once. And they've seen the show with people. Now they're seeing the show with people in costumes and cat makeup on. And so you can't say, I need you to spot the brown kitty because there's 9 of them, you know? So we literally went through the song without orchestra at quarter speed, having them raise their hands just before they sang. So my spot ops could get used to where they were so we could then pick up the speed with it. And then, of course, the costumes kept changing every night. So they would get used to it looking one way, and then all of a sudden, oh, when did that cat get gray camouflage? Obviously today. I don't know. So, you know, at least they were still in the same place. But, yeah. Practice makes perfect.
Cat's earworm now.
That's why I didn't sing it, Julie. I just said it. So...
So I have a question from Instagram, and I'm not sure that you guys have seen this one. But maybe I sent this one to you. What is the most positive environment you've ever worked in, and what made it that way? Yeah, Bob, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, at Farmers Alley, I had most. I would say largely had positive environments, working environments the whole time, and I think a big part of that was the familiarity with everyone for sure, and you know, we knew each other well and knew how to work with each other, and that helps productions move along in that way and be a positive working environment because we knew each other. In New York, it's usually not the case. You don't. I don't know most of the people that I'm working with on show to show. I know one or two people that got me to that show, but then the rest of it are new people. And the most positive working environments that I have been in is where everyone has a seat at the table. And throughout the whole process, the stage manager is present and part of the company. Because there are a lot of processes that I've been in where the stage manager is kind of like a computer, and the director doesn't really want to hear from them, and they're just kind of over there, you know, taking notes and doing their thing
and crying in the corner.
Yeah, but the teams that let you have a seat at the table and engage in the process are the most positive environments for sure. And also I think for me it's largely the relationship with the director is what can really make or break a positive experience. And if the director is allowing you to welcome and greet everybody and start the day, and then listen and facilitate through the day, and then end and you know, give important information at the end of the day, and say goodbye essentially to the whole cast and crew at the end of every day. That really sets a stage manager up for a positive environment and for success when the stage manager takes over the show and suddenly there's not this director voice that is the voice to listen to, because now the attention shifts over to the stage manager, and the stage manager is the person that you listen to. So those are the positive environments that I've worked at.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That is. Roger, do you have anything you'd like to share?
I have been extremely lucky, first of all, that I have the job that I have, and I've got to be a part of the Farmers Alley Theater family for as long as I have been. I mean, I feel like I'm, you know, the great uncle or something.
Uncle Raj.
Yeah, I can't.
There's your new nickname.
I can't be grandpa or any of those because those are the founders. But I could be the uncle. And I do think we're very lucky that we have a group of people that we have assembled that really values everybody's opinions. Now, that does not mean that every idea that everyone has is going to come true. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But I have never once felt that my idea, my opinion was not heard, which I think is very important. And even in my younger days, when when I worked at the Civic, because I'd been at the Civic for so long and had such a rapport with the staff there at the time, and the volunteer base and that, which, you know, because we create these relationships, and I try to hire people that I like to work with. And when I was at the Civic, I would do the same thing. I would go to the director of volunteers and say, hey, I'd really like to request these people to be on my crew. That didn't mean I would always get them.
Right.
But at least that was written down and was considered. And I think all of those, on top of what Bob said, because what Bob said is so important, that it all really stems from the director, especially at the beginning of a production. Because if the director just sort of brushes you to the side, then the cast feels that that's okay. So,
yeah. Well, I just realized that I haven't gotten a chance to brag about you guys yet.
oh,
So I'm going to brag for a minute. We're going to stroke some egos. We're going to talk about how great you are.
I'll stroke my hair.
Everyone in the comments, feel free to shower these gentlemen with praise. So just a minute, Jason. We'll get there. We'll get there. So I'm going to start with Roger.
Yeah.
So now Roger gets to brag that he, outside of probably the guy who writes the checks, Roger has been involved with more Farmers Alley Theater productions than any other person. And, bonus, he got to ride Rise of the Resistance at Disney World in January of 2020.
That's right. That's a big one.
Now, Bob also has some cool things to brag about.
Are probably much more exciting than mine are.
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. So since moving to New York City in 2017, Bob has assistant stage managed and production stage managed 2 off-Broadway productions at Cherry Lane Theater, and production stage managed several productions around New York City.
Woohoo!
It's true.
So do you have any fun New York stories for us?
Oh, countless. Oh my God.
Too many.
Too many to count. How could I possibly? I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know. This is so silly that this is coming to my mind right now. But this is coming to my mind right now. The first show that I worked on in New York City, it was actually called Ferguson, and it was about the shooting of Michael Brown, actually, and it was a beautiful play. It was very good. And it was this off-Broadway production in this space called Urban Stages on, I think it was on like West 30th Street and 8th Avenue, for anybody that knows what that means.
Just south of the Empire State.
That's right. Not far. And this, so grateful to have this opportunity to work at this theater. But this theater, it was in poor shape. And one of my duties at this theater was at the end of each night, I had to turn off the runner lights for the stairs in the audience. And to do that, I had to go underneath the stairs, through where all the custodial supplies are, and through where the trash is held, and find this switch that was probably a foot off the ground under these risers. Terrible. And in doing this, one late night, I'm all alone in this theater by myself. I stepped on a mouse trap, and it was one of those like sticky mouse traps that my shoe adhered to completely, and it was also stuck to a full bag of trash.
Oh, nice!
And that was the moment where I thought, you know what? I made it.
Yep. I am a success.
I truly made it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. So Jason asked you guys to talk about what it takes to be an equity stage manager. I guess in relation to someone who's not equity, like what are the differences between being like a stage manager, like I do at some local high schools, and between being actually in the union?
Basically, job-wise, there shouldn't be a whole lot of difference because the job stays the same. To get an equity card, there are basically 2 ways to do that. One is to get your way bought into the union by an equity producer that decides that they want to hire you, and they give you a union contract. The other way, which is the way probably most people receive their equity card, is through the EMC program, which is Equity Membership Candidacy Program. Back in the olden days, which was, 4 years ago, I think you needed 52 weeks, or was it 50 weeks?
50.
50 weeks of equity shows. That includes rehearsals and performances. And you could do that over whatever time it took to get those 50 weeks. That has since been changed, and now it requires 26 weeks, is all.
Wow.
So it's actually easier, or it doesn't take, I shouldn't say easier, it doesn't take as long anymore to become an equity member. Now, equity is only available to stage managers, assistant stage managers, and actors.
Right.
So if you're a floor crew member, that's another union. If you're a soundboard operator, that's another union. If you're a spotlight operator, that's another union. If you're a fly line person, that's another union. And they all have their own requirements, and I don't know what those are.
Well, come on, Roger, you're a stage manager. You're supposed to have all the answers.
I know how to become a stage manager. So I received mine. It was sort of a 50-50 because I was in the EMC program as soon as Farmers Alley started allowing us to offer the program. We were not an equity theater at the time. And it was probably a year after that where we went to be an equity theater, and our first full equity theater production, I think, was Next to Normal, if I'm not mistaken. So to call that, I had to have an equity contract.
Right.
So I never made all 50 weeks. I had like 44 in, I think. But yeah, that's how you do it. And you have to do those weeks in an equity theater. And the theater has to be ranked through equity to be able to be part of the EMC program.
Which Farmers Alley is.
Yes, it is.
So before we wrap up, do you guys have anything else you want to share? Like anything maybe you wish people knew about stage management, or anything else at all? Like what your favorite kind of sandwich is? I don't know.
The Thanksgiving leftover sandwich. That's my death row meal right there.
That sounds delicious, like as a panini. With all that stuff piled on and then just smushed and grilled.
Gravy seeping out the sides, but just a little.
Just put it on the top and let it.
This is really derailed. This is great.
I just want to say that as an audience member, always remember that we're there, because if we weren't there, you would not see anything and you would not hear anything. So we are really, really important to the production. And I'm not saying that to have people, oh, you did such a great job. That's not what I'm saying at all.
We've already said that to you a few times tonight, Roger.
And it's so true. But you know, it is very, very, we are a very essential role in the theater, in a theater production. And it would look a lot different if we were not there.
Yeah. So. Bob, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I think something that that maybe a lot of people don't realize is, and we've talked about this in a couple of ways, is that the stage manager is involved with the production from before rehearsals begin through the very end of closing the show. I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that. I think a lot of people think that like either the lighting designer or the director like calls the show every night or something like that. But yeah, it's this little thing called a stage manager.
Little thing. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you're me, and then it's a big thing.
Oh, come on. Oh, hey, there was one more Instagram question suggestion. I I think this person's name is actually Bob Brownell. So I wanted to ask this to make sure that he gets his answer. How are you two so handsome?
Makeup.
Makeup. I should look into that.
I really think it's my mullet. I think that's what does it. So.
Yeah, I think it's our facial hair for sure.
Definitely the facial hair. You're right. I gotta work on that.
I think there's some essential oils or something that you could look into.
Okay, I should. Thank you. Thank you for asking that question and answering that question.
You're welcome. How embarrassing.
Well, the mustache is duh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course it is. I'll get there someday.
Someday
I'll be on your level.
Mascara is an amazing thing.
Next time.
You can just paint it right on and then it washes right off.
Well, thank you both so much for being here and for hanging out and for sharing some of your stepping on mousetrap stories and your favorite shows, and just some of your knowledge and wisdom.
Oh! Should I tell my best theater story?
Yeah.
Oh, which depends, Roger. Which one is this? Let's hear it.
It happened in Cabaret.
Okay.
Oh no.
And I had gone around. We were in a performance. It was an intermission, and I had just called places, and I was going up to the bridge to call the show for Act 2. And for those of you who don't know, which is probably almost everyone, unless you have worked backstage at a Farmers Alley Theater production, to get to the deck, it's only a half ceiling. So it might be, 4 feet at the most?
Right.
But yet to get through the door to go out on the catwalk, it's shorter still. And as I was going...
I just realized what story this is.
As I was going through that doorway, I felt something. I mean, it didn't hurt. But I went, ow. And I pulled my hand away, and it was covered in hemoglobin. And so I come downstairs, and Adam Carter, God rest his soul, saw me, and he was the first one, I think, to actually see me. And he just went, oh, it's the night fair on Elm Street. Because by this time, my whole head was covered in blood. And Cindy Hunter's orchestra was in the green room. So she runs over and shoves direct pressure on my head and sticks me under the sink to run water on it. And, I'm going, just get the bleeding stop. I'll call the show. Not having any idea that I have a 10-inch gash in my scalp that's basically exposing my skull.
I hope no one's having dinner.
Yeah. So John Muley and I went to the hospital, and I ended up getting wrapped up in a turban of gauze, which was quite fun. I felt like Norma Desmond on a bad day, and ended up with 10 staples in my head. But I called the show the next day. Kathy Muley ran the light board for the second act of the show, which she had never done before. Now, as the director, she basically knew where things were supposed to happen. But Cabaret, because we did it in the round and we didn't use spotlights, was a little trickier than what a normal show would have been. So the songs had more internal cues because we had these fixtures that had movable mirrors on them, which I don't know what they're called anymore.
IQs.
Because we don't use them anymore. And that's how you spotlit the actors as they moved and all of this stuff. And Max Wardlow was on my book calling the cues, and he'd call Kathy to tell Kathy it's the next cue, and Kathy would go, not yet, not yet. And then she'd push the go button. And the next day when I came to the theater and saw her, of course, she asked she came to the hospital after the show, as did Cindy and numerous other people, because I still hadn't been stapled yet. Which, if anyone has not gone through that process, they use a stapler.
Yep.
It is a stapler. But the next day, she went, Lanny writes a lot of cues. And I'm going, honey, you just did Act 2. It's only a 30-minute act. You got the easy part, with the exception of the fight. The fight was very difficult, and that was really difficult. But yeah, so.
Well, we're glad you're okay.
I got a picture from Bob Brownell of the incident remains.
Yes.
Which I still have on my cell phone.
Oh, horrible. Yeah.
Well, I'm never going to delete that.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. So I was the assistant stage manager on that show.
Yes, you were.
And I couldn't do anything about it.
And I remember, I don't remember it, but I remember CJ saying that, because everyone's in their places. And I think it was Adam Weiner came out and said, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a slight delay to the start of Act 2. We've had an incident with one of our company members. And everyone's going, who is that? Because no one knew, because they were where they're supposed to be. So yeah, that was my exciting theater story. The good thing is, again, it never hurt. Through the whole process, I took 3 Tylenols. That was it through the whole process. But I was very lucky. But
Skull of steel.
Yeah, exactly. That might just be thick-headed, but.
All right. Well, thank you both again for coming on and spending your Tuesday here, doing some Farmers Alley chat and some life chat. Thank you everyone for watching, for hanging out with us, for your comments and your praise and your very, very smart advice to always be nice to your stage manager. Next up, we have Broadway Battles Pride Edition this Sunday at 8 p.m. So that'll be very fun. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
Who does that feature?
That is Connor Clock is going to be hosting.
Okay.
He runs QTK. That's Queer Theater Kalamazoo.
He's been an assistant director for a lot of shows too.
He has. He's really awesome. And I believe Hal, Megan, and Dwight are going to be our guests.
Oh, okay.
I think, subject to change. I think, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. So. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe Farmers Alley across all social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We have all of them, I think. So just look for us. You'll be able to find us. And we hope you feel something.
Yeah.
So good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you.